Hello, guys, welcome back to this new episode. And in this episode, we are going to talk about one of the most interesting philosophical arguments of the last century, this century, just for us to be very clear, right? And we are going to talk about the so called brain in a vat hypothesis. So, we are talking about an experiment, a mental experiment, a thought experiment that was elaborated by Hilary Putnam. Now, Hilary Putnam is a very well known in the field for creating a lot of thought experiments. But this one investigates the nature of reality, and it is something in between what is called metaphysical realism and what is called skepticism, right? And basically, this argument says the following. Imagine that one night we have an encounter with alien creatures. They kidnap us, they take us to another planet, another very different and very technologically advanced planet. Now, there, they completely eliminate our body. They don't care about that, so they can eliminate it. And then they preserve the brain and they attach our brain, put that in a bathtub, in a vat, whatever, right? So the brain is in water, just like the fluid that is in our heads. And or anyway, the alien creatures attach sort of cables to our brain so that we can still perceive external reality. Specifically, we are going to perceive reality as identical as the one we knew. So the next morning, what happens? That we wake up. And when we wake up, we find reality exactly like we know it. So we have no memory, and if we have some memory, we could think that that was just a very weird and vivid dream in case. And reality, though, is, even though it is perceived the way we know it, is completely different in reality. Because even if our perception of it has not changed, the reality itself has changed. To give you an example, right? This reality is completely computer simulated, right? It is not true in the real sense of the term. So if I get kidnapped and get transported to another planet, and we're talking about my brain, I still perceive my wall and then my painting, poster, whatever you want to call it, right? But the point is that whatever I perceive is not true. We are talking about the fact that this is not a real wall, but an image that is projected onto the computer, or that my brain can still see, even though it does not exist. And again, this will not be my wall, and that will not be my painting, poster, whatever, right? So we are talking about a reference that becomes empty. Now, we define with the term of empty reference something that truly does not exist. In other words, if I pick the term unicorn, right, I can describe unicorns. I can say that they're pink, that they have wings, that they have a horn, that they can fly, or they are magical creatures with magical powers, whatever, right? I can do a bunch of different things with the terms unicorn or unicorns, right? But conventionally, that term doesn't designate anything. Now, the only reason why I'm saying conventionally is because we agreed that in our reality, in our metaphysics, not in a metaphysics that is completely imaginary, we agreed that my door exists, that my closet exists. What does not exist are unicorns, right? In other words, these creatures do not designate a specific entity, right? That entity which we can describe does not exist. That is, if we are realist. So if we say we stick with what we know that exists in reality. But how can we actually define reality if we face this type of dilemma? In other words, we always speak about truths, we always speak about facts, we always speak about something that we take for granted that does exist and is real, right? So much so that when we argue, we say, no, you're wrong, that I didn't say that, or that does not exist, or you are seeing something that wasn't there. If we are talking, for instance, about a suspicion that somebody has, right? Suspicious type of behavior, for instance, right? So, all of that is to say that if we take this experiment and we face this experiment, we have to deal with an important question, which is what if factuality, the entire factuality, was some sort of dream or some sort of hallucination? On the other hand, we do know that we hallucinate. Now, this is not Hillary Putnam's position, but the truth is that we constantly hallucinate. If we do have a trauma and we lose, unfortunately, a limb, right? In some cases, our body keeps hallucinating that limb. And so that is called the syndrome of the phantom limb, right? So we feel like we have something that we have lost. Especially that happens like neurobiologically for our limbs, right? And my point here, what if, our entire reality did not exist? How, in other words, can we be sure that what we see is and corresponds totally 100% to what it exists? But how can I possibly define reality? How can I possibly be sure that what I see, what I witness, what I wake up in is actually reality? There's an hypothesis here that I want to mention, another hypothesis, a different one, called that of the invisible pebble. The hypothesis in question says that I do have an invisible pebble in my hand. Now, if I have it or not, it will not change much because the pebble in question is invisible. I cannot feel it, I cannot see it, I cannot touch it. It's kind of like does not exist, right? But having or not having something in one's hand is a very, very different story from living a reality or not living a reality.
This is everything but a new argument in philosophy, because if you guys remember, also Descartes had the same argument at the beginning of the fourth philosophical meditation. He wondered whether there was a way for him to discern something that was a dream from something that was a reality. Got to the point indeed of saying that even his entire existence could be the result of a dream of God. But then his solution out of that sort of dilemma was, in other words, to say that if I think, therefore I must exist, right? Now that makes some kind of sense if we stick to the rules, the laws of physics, the laws of biology, neurobiology, and whatever is out there that we know and that we understand to be true, so that we can anchor down us thinking to what is basically our own existence on this planet, the way we define existence. But again, in this thought experiment, the brain in a vat, then I can continue to exist, and who knows, I mean, I've never crossed life, went to the afterworld, and then so that I was not thinking or that I was not existing. Somehow we also continue to exist during sleep. We do have a sort of existence where our thoughts keep on being there in a very contorted way in a form of dreams. On the contrary, the solution for Putnam is a little different, because he solved the problem by posing a so-called modus tollens syllogism, right? Where he said that simulated reality is not the same thing of or as reality itself. The understanding though here is that this problem remains to be solved, in a sense that basically solving a problem logically does not guarantee that solution is applicable, and does not guarantee some sort of like validity of that solution into the metaphysical realm of things. In other words, saying that something logically does not hold water is not the same thing as saying that metaphysically that thing cannot happen, or that metaphysically that syllogism has the same validity, the same power. And we have to think that other philosophers, logicians, in the last decades have abundantly dealt or tried to deal with this problem, and with the repercussions on a linguistic level that this problem presents. So many of them have landed onto the shore of nominalism, right? And so we have established as a community, we have established that the stronger position to hold in relation to the logical consequences and the repercussions of this problem is to have a very nominalistic perspective and outlook on language. We also know very clearly that languages like Sanskrit have preserved the intimate connection. They designate the essences of things, right? So the words do designate exactly that kind of object. Whereas more modern languages, like Indo-European languages, for instance, do not preserve that kind of link, that kind of connection, and they just indicate because we want them to indicate. When we translate from one language to another, there is no translation that is absolutely perfect, and there are ways of saying, right, things that are to be understood within the structure and the complexity of a language, right? And so what we're saying is that the wall is just the wall because we have agreed upon the fact that that is exactly a wall. And so the ultimate consequence of all of that would be the fact that even sciences might pose on a foundation that is actually only conventional, right? That, in other words, means that we have decided a priori that 2 + 2 is 4, but that doesn't mean in the real world anything, but the fact that we have established that to be so. Now, what is the point, the final point of all of this, right? Is that this is a stronger position from the logical standpoint, but it cannot be as strong in the metaphysical world because we do not have an answer to the question how we can discern, from a simulated reality to, and we can discern that from actual reality, right? And because we do not have any answer, we'll stop here. We'll leave to you the last word. So please let me know what you think. Let me know what you make out of the entire argument. We'll talk some more next time with a new video about a completely different topic. Please comment below, let me know. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you can receive every new update. Let me know what you think. Again, comment below and we'll talk some more next time. Bye!